So let's just go ahead and dive in and talk a little bit about, you know, first of all, a lot of people probably saw the last video, but for people who are new to you,
Yeah.
who are you? I know that you're the CEO of YGTMedia. What is that? What
Absolutely.
does blended publishing mean? All of it.
All the good stuff. Okay. So my name's Sabrina Greer, and I am an author first. I wrote and published my first two books with a traditional publisher, and then I self-published after that. And what happened was people started coming to me saying, well, if you can do that for yourself, then you could do it for us, right? I was like, I guess in theory, yes, I can. So that was how my publishing house was born. YGT stands for You've Got This. And, although that may be like a cheesy sort of cliche kind of expression, my books are called You've Got This Mama. And it was a series of co-authored books, so multi-author, which there was 18 to 20 authors in each volume in that series. And it's a 5-part series, and we're launching a 6th one next year. So that's why the name just stuck. It was like, You've Got This. It was originally You've Got This Mama. And then we started supporting authors that weren't moms and, creating content and publishing books that had nothing to do with motherhood. So we changed it to YGT Media, because really what we do with blended publishing is it's more than just putting a book out there. So when you self-publish, you're really just like putting your book out there and hoping and praying that it, does okay. And unfortunately, the statistics are like staggering that most self-published authors sell less than 100 books in their entire career. And that to me was unacceptable. So blended publishing is sort of the best of both worlds. And on paper, we're called a hybrid publisher. I just really don't like the term hybrid because it makes me feel like some sort of strange animal or some sort of like car, it's like hybrid. And I find with like hybrid events and hybrid this and hybrid that, it's just a word that it doesn't resonate for me. So I was looking like, I really felt into it. I'm like, what resonates for me with what we actually do? And what we do is we blend the best of both worlds, traditional publishing and self-publishing, to create the optimal experience for the author. We put the authors first, whereas with traditional publishing, they own your intellectual property rights. They have the final say with creative control, with the actual content control. So to me, that's really sort of limiting. And then with self-publishing, it's too vast. It's like you have control of everything and there's no guidance, and you get stuck down the rabbit hole of Google trying to figure out everything on your own, vast. So one side's too limiting, the other side's too vast. So I really wanted to come somewhere in the middle, blend the best parts of those types of publishing together to create this sort of inclusive and supportive space in the publishing world. And there's really nobody else doing it this way. So I'm actually working with my legal team right now to trademark and officially make blended publishing, ours, to make it individual to us. But obviously, and always, people will hop on the bandwagon and, do it too, but that's okay. Cause what is it? Imitation is the best form of flattery. So I'll take it.
Yes, exactly.
Go ahead. Right.
Exactly.
We're industry change makers and I am okay with that.
Yes, yeah. I love it. So the purpose of our call today really is to talk about how you can leverage your book to kind of establish yourself as a thought leader. So I'm going to let you just dive into that. And Absolutely. As I have questions, I'll make note of them and save them until the end. And anyone who hops on and joins, we'll make sure that they hold their questions or put them in the chat.
Great. And then anyone who has questions after this, if they're watching the recording, I am an open book, pun absolutely intended. I like puns too. So please reach out, because I really my goal with this whole new style of publishing is to inform. I really want to educate and inform people. I want the publishing industry to be inclusive and feel like something that everyone can do, because I strongly believe that anyone can publish a book. It does not have to be this scary, top of Mount Everest goal. It can be something that you do, and it can be something that you do now this year. next year, like immediately, right? It doesn't have to keep going to your bucket list or going to your vision board and getting pushed and pushed and pushed. It's something that everyone can do, and everyone can do it right now. So talking about that, so when you hear the term thought leader, like what crosses your mind, right? A lot of people will say, oh, like an influencer or this and that. So the definition of thought leader is one whose views on a subject are taken to be authoritative and influential. So that's pretty vague, and it can be sort of like a lot of different meanings and different things depending on who you're speaking to. But to me, a thought leader is someone who is dominating their industry, their topic. It's somebody who is visible. It's somebody who is respected when they are speaking. And it's somebody who is putting themselves out there time and time again. Because here's the thing, this whole world of like experts, you don't need to have 10,000 letters and numbers in front of and behind your name to be a thought leader. You do not, to be an expert in something, because you are the expert in your own life and your own experiences. That's what makes people experts, right? You can take all the courses and all the accreditations and all the things in the world, but what's going to make you an expert is living it. And that's what separates, these like, and I have no disrespect at all for like doctors and lawyers and people who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in school and half of their life teaching to be something. Of course, I'm not suggesting that I could go out tomorrow and do brain surgery. That is not something that I am an expert in. You do not want me operating on your brain, I promise. However, building thought leadership does not require all of those things, right? It's really just understanding your goals, your vision, your topic, your pillars in your business, your pillars in your life, whatever it is. So I always say it's like a table theory, right? So if you have 4 pillars to stand on, so these are 4 things that define your business, define who you are as an individual, as a speaker, as a writer, as a creative person, whatever that is. 4 things that you could talk about if you were put on the spot. If somebody was like, hey, you come up on stage, we're missing a speaker. And you're like, oh, okay. What could you talk about without preparing in advance, without having a speech written, right? Those become your expertise. Those become the things that define the pillars that your foundation stand upon, right? And I do this with like business coaching and everything, but with authors and thought leaders too. So defining those 4 pillars is huge. And it could be something as simple as, so like I help people find clarity in their business, clarity in their messaging, clarity in what their offers are, all of that. So clarity is one of my pillars, right? So defining what those things are so that you can build your foundation upon those 4 pillars. That's why I call it a table theory, because it's like, 4, you don't always need 4 to hold up a table. Like some tables are a little different, but in theory, right? 4 pillars to hold it up. Same with the house. Any sort of foundation that you want to build upon, you want to have those 4 things. So defining what those are before you write your book, before you start your business, whatever it is that you're doing, this applies to literally everything. Defining those 4 things that you can confidently talk about and, do it with your eyes closed, blindfolded, whatever it is, like that's your jam, right? These 4 things. So that's how you build your thought leadership. So some examples. So like think of TED Talks, right? Anyone who's done a TED Talk, it's like, ooh, now you're like a professional international speaker. It's not that hard to do a TED Talk, right? And I'm, again, not discrediting anyone who does TED Talks, but you really just have to send in your application to, there's like thousands and thousands of TED Talks. Like every city in every country has their own, like even little like sub-cities and, towns and things have their own TED Talk. So you can go and apply and become a TED Talk person, right? And then that becomes like your speech. So it's the same when you're writing a book, right? Writing a book is literally a marketing tool for whatever it is that you're building, right? So if you don't have a business or you're not an entrepreneur, and my last talk I did with this group, we talked about being an authorpreneur and like how you can start a business with the content from your book and vice versa. You can write a book with the content from your business. So this all sort of ties into that as well. These 4 pillars, right? That becomes the framework for your book. And then once you publish your book, the coolest part about that is it becomes copywritten material that you own, unless you're publishing with a traditional publisher, and then you don't own it. So make sure you think about these things and read the fine print before you publish your book. But yes, if you own the intellectual property rights to your work, to your book, then it becomes copywritten material that becomes yours. So that's how you build thought leadership. This becomes your speech that you do when you talk at conferences. This becomes, you can turn it into a course. You can turn it into a group coaching program. You can turn it into one-on-one coaching. You can turn, like, the sky is not even the limit. There is no limit to what you can grow from this. You can have an accompaniment journal. You can have affirmation cards or some kind of card deck that you do, like literally anything, merchandise, like it just keeps going and going and going. So essentially what you're doing with this thought leadership piece, these 4 pillars that you're building, you're creating a brand and you're creating a business that has line extensions and products and things that you can sell, service and actual physical tangible products. I feel like you want to say something.
I do.
Okay. I love that.
Yeah, simply because I do know the women who are in my group and even other, women business owner groups that I belong to. There are a lot of people who are truly passionate about the field that they've gotten into. And this gives you an opportunity and an outlet to really, like you said, be seen as kind of the expert in your industry. But also as a marketer myself, you are literally creating almost endless marketing content that you can repurpose in so many different ways. Marilee's just joining us now, so I'm gonna let her in. But yeah, I see a lot of people promote their books simply by copying and pasting text that they've written and posting it onto a graphic. And so, just something as simple as that can be super powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and here's the thing, right? Going back to what we were saying before and not discrediting, doctors and lawyers and people who are like highly educated, but you think about that for a second, like how much do you invest?
The things you did brought smiles to people's faces and tears of joy at a time they needed it the most.
Says I'm muted. It says I was muted. There we go. Oh, now you're muted, Amber. All good. Technical difficulties 101 here. Anyway, what I would say is like, think of how much you invest in your degrees, right? You go through, you get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a doctorate, a PhD, all of these things, right? That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And for what? You get the letters and the numbers and a job, and like there's definitely benefits to higher education. And like I said, I'm not discrediting that at all. But you think about it, like a book, yes, it is an investment when you're using, when you're either self-publishing or hybrid publishing, because there's pieces to it, right? You're paying to have the support systems in place, editorial, design. These are trades that are important to the process, and you want to make sure you're not cutting corners so that you have a high quality product. But think about it, even if your book, say it costs $20,000 to invest in a book, now you have a physical product that becomes a business, but you also have that thought leadership piece, because people don't look and say, oh, like she's not a doctor or a lawyer, or doesn't have those letters in front of her name, so I'm not going to like listen to the advice that she gives in the book. No, they go, oh, she wrote the book about it. The problem that I'm having over here, I'm the reader, the problem I'm having over here, this person literally wrote the book about it. So I'm going to buy that book because that's going to solve my problem. It's only going to cost me $20 or $25 or whatever to buy this piece. And I'm going to be able to take it and get what I need out of it, because that's what it said it would do. right? So that's what true thought leadership is, right? So having a book is literally like a business card. It's a tool to create that thought leadership. So a lot of my authors will come to me and be like, well, now I'm going to retire because I wrote a book and I'm just going to sit back and wait for the book sales to roll in. And it's like, no, you're not. You're not going to retire off of book sales, sweetheart. But what you can retire off of is now people are going to pay you to speak at their conferences. People are going to pay you to come and be a guest coach in their groups, in their platforms, right? People are going to want to collaborate with you on different things for different brands, because now you not only become a thought leader, you become an influencer, right? And
Curious
I think
to know. Sorry, I'm just curious to know how your own personal life has shifted as an author, and maybe if you can speak to some of the transformations or opportunities that have presented themselves to your authors.
Absolutely. It's crazy. So like, I won't bring in any names specifically because I don't want to do that. But like one of our authors, she is like a spiritual healer and coach. And she wrote a book about exactly that, about feminine energy and, balancing the energy types and all of this. It did so well in launch. And she strategically launched her coaching program, which the previous year when she did it, she sold, I think, like 5 or 6 spots, $1,000 a spot. So it was like a multi 5-figure launch. However, after the launch of her book, she upped the price because she can now, because she's a thought leader, and she sold it out. And it was a multi 6-figure launch for her coaching program, which is now a world-renowned program. And she offers certifications through her program. So now she's the one certifying coaches to become coaches under her certification. So like, there's one example, right? For my own personal life, now I'm a publisher, right? So I essentially had to come up with something because I'm not going to write a book about writing a book. That seems a little redundant, but I created a journal. So my Brain to Book journal is exactly that. It's a journal. It's 222 pages of writing prompts and inspirational quotes, and all of the tools that I teach in my programs are sort of like a lot more vague, of course, but it's in the front matter of this journal. So it's like, here's how you use this. Here's the tools that I use in my program to teach. Now I'm going to give this to you so that you can do that. And everyone who joins my programs gets a copy of it, right? And it was something super easy for me to make because it's something that I teach every day. It was like my pillars, right? It's all having this tool that I can give to people, to aspiring authors. And it's available on Amazon. It's available at all the major book retailers. And when people say like, oh, well, like, so what, you've written some books, like what gives you the right to be a publisher? It's like, well, actually I created a journal that's all about that. It's all about publishing. It's all about writing. It's all about, building thought leadership. It's all in this like beautiful 200-page product that you can buy on Amazon. So yeah, there's lots and lots of ways to build your thought leadership with any kind of product. It doesn't necessarily even have to be a full book. If you're like, oh, I just don't have 60,000 words in me right now, right? It's like, that's okay. You can create a journal, you can create cards, you can create a product that falls into the same category and start there and then move on to the book, right? And like another example, so that this is one of our authors, Amanda. I just happen to have her book here, but it's a business book. It's 30,000 words, or you're looking at a quick 180-page book, but it's her whole system that she teaches in her program. So now anyone who's interested in joining her program's called the Monarch Business Academy, the MBA. And it's genius. It's all about launching your business, and her whole framework is in this book. So if somebody's interested, but they're not ready to invest like the $3,000 to $5,000 it costs to join the program, they can get access to the same information here for $20 on Amazon. Right? So it also brings in new connections. It brings in and it brings people into your that otherwise might not have been there. I don't know if I'm frozen or not.
No, I just went off video for a second.
Oh, okay. It's just that my internet was unstable. So that's the joys of all of this online stuff. So yeah, that's what I had to say about that.
Awesome. So can you talk a little bit about the type of authors that you typically work with at your publishing company?
Of course. So my motto is and my goal with the books that we produce are to educate, motivate, inspire, empower. So we don't publish fiction at this time, not currently. We do publish children's books. We publish tools, like I just mentioned, so journals, card decks, workbooks, things like that. But really my goal with what we publish is to empower people, right? So all of our books are nonfiction and they're in the personal growth and development space. So some are business related, some are memoirs and personal stories that have an inspiring message. Some are like literal workbooks that people can use, lots of affirmations and positive spirituality stuff. So yeah, it's really, my goal is to be as inclusive as possible and not, of course we have to turn some people away because it's not the right fit for us. But for the most part, I want to make publishing and writing books very accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
So, some of our authors are stay-at-home moms who just have a really powerful story to share. And some of them are, 7-figure entrepreneurs that are writing business books about their journey to becoming a millionaire. And, really it's for everyone, because I truly, truly believe that anyone can do this and that everyone has a story to share. That's important.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the questions that I had before I signed on with your company, and it came up in our last call as well. I know you mentioned we only work with fiction or nonfiction. And so, something that came up for me, because there are going to be people in my story that I don't necessarily want to name. So with my particular book, I'm going to be kind of evolving these characters into fictional characters. And so that is okay. That's something that you know how to work with.
Exactly. So it's called nonfiction narrative. So really any kind of nonfiction has a fictional element, unless it's an autobiography, which is usually written by somebody else about somebody. That's the facts. That's the and then they went to school here and then they were blah, 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 right? Snore. We don't do that. All of our books have an element of storytelling. And we just say that in the copyright page at the beginning. It's like, these characters have been altered in some situations, altered for the protection of the people involved. But as long as there's a connection to a personal story or some level of like inspiration or empowerment to it, right? It's still considered nonfiction, because I know your story has a lot of like, elements of fiction because of the connection to like the fairy tales and that kind of thing. But we can always tie it back to reality, right? So unless it's like fiction, like Lord of the Rings or something like that, right? Like where it's just it's not possible, it's not a thing, then yes. So to answer your question in sort of a long roundabout way, we do publish nonfiction narrative, and a big part of what we offer is storytelling, because that's important, right? We're not just publishing books that are like day 1, day 2, day 3, right? Like we want there to be something tangible for the reader to be able to take away from the journey, from the message.
Very cool. Well, I want to, if you're open to it, we have Marilee with us, and I would like to ask her if she has any questions, to feel free to unmute. So Marilee, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask Sabrina, or you can drop those in the
Pop it
chat
in the
if you're
chat,
not in a
yeah.
place where you can unmute. That's totally fine as well. And while she's doing that, Sabrina, is there anything pertaining to thought leadership that you still want to cover before we talk about the Author Generator Society?
I think we all suffer from imposter syndrome at some point in our careers, right? And I think that's a huge piece when it comes to thought leadership and to even writing a book, right? Is that people are nervous to overcome that fear because it's not even that they're afraid to put themselves out there necessarily, but they're afraid to be seen. They're afraid to be heard because of it's usually because of a fear of judgment. They're afraid like people will know I'm not a doctor or a brain surgeon, right? People will think this or think that. And it's really like, have those 5 seconds of courage to push through that. Because I can tell you right now, of course I have naysayers. I have naysayers every day. I've got internet trolls all over me all the time. But the good stuff far outweighs the few people that have said, oh, well, this girl doesn't know what she's talking about. Or like, she's only published like these co-author books. And like, who is she to tell us how to do this? And blah, blah, blah. Like, I hear it all the time. I just don't care. And that's the difference between me and a lot of people who are stuck behind that wall of fear, not willing to put themselves out because they're terrified of it, right? So that would be my only, like, what I would leave you with is like, know that imposter syndrome isn't real. It's a fear. It's fear-based, and it's not real. You don't need to be afraid of it. You can put yourself out there and build whatever it is that you want to build and become a thought leader in whatever it is you want to become a thought leader in.
For sure. And Marilee is chatting with us. Okay, she's just telling us a little bit about her book, so that's really cool. So let's chat a little bit about Author Generator Society. I'm excited because I'm gonna be able to jump into the deep end with my other fellow authors, and of course your publishing team. Let's talk a little bit about, you know, what this involves, what people can expect if they want to join, and then of course we're on a deadline. You are closing the doors to Author Generator Society tomorrow. And Marilee, I did see your question, and we're going to get back to it in just a second. But Sabrina, can you just talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier on the call, Author Generator Society is a mastermind style group coaching and accountability container for emerging authors. So what that means is we meet weekly. Every other week, we do a co-writing and accountability call, which is like literally you black out your screen and you mute your microphone and you write. So if that's the only dedicated intentional writing time you can block on your calendar, we're all busy people. We're all, you know, doing a million things. I get that. But even if that's the only time that you can block off to write, you'll still get your manuscript done in 6 months, because it's about the intention and creating that space to actually focus on your book, booking it in like an appointment. And we go through all the tools. So it's a module-based program. You have access to all 7 modules the minute you join, so you can really move at your own pace. But the guided part of the program is meant to complete your manuscript in 6 months. You also have lifetime access to the space. So like, for example, if you don't finish your book in 6 months or life happens and something gets in the way, you can always restart the content. You can always jump back into coming on the calls whenever. It's not like you get kicked out of it, right? It's not. So that's where it's not like a typical mastermind. It's an ongoing support group for writers to write their manuscripts. And then when you're done, so a lot of our authors from our previous cohorts have now published their books, but they're still in that space. And now they're stepping up as thought leaders, and they're teaching the new students in the group about their experience or whatever it is they are a thought leader in, whatever their book was about, right? So if their book was a personal story, like a memoir, then they're teaching about their experience through writing and publishing. And if their book was like a business book, and so like Amanda's, for example, where she talks about launching, this is what she's going to teach on in the author generator, is how to launch your book with success and joy, right? So that's how it works. And then we have guest coaches. So like these thought leaders come in every other week to our co-writing and accountability calls. So there's a guest expert in all different areas: marketing, branding, publishing, mindset. Really, we cover all areas that could have anything to do with writing or publishing a book. So it's a very, very cohesive and in-depth learning experience for anyone who's considering writing a book within the next couple of years. Yeah.
Very good. So I'm gonna just bring up Marilee's chat. And she said, I'm an early years educator and my book is a resource for early reading. It's based on traditional rhymes. The content, how to, is being offered as training videos. Is this an approach for thought leadership?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's putting you out there, first of all, and it's putting you in a position where you're creating resources for people. That is what thought leadership is. So I did read the definition earlier before you came on the call, Marilee. It's one whose views on a subject are taken to be authoritative and influential. So the fact that you have content and a product out there that's teaching people and supporting people, that is what thought leadership is. So really just building on that and making yourself more visible, putting yourself into the position of that authoritative, like, become the go-to for this product, right? You are the one that people will go to when they want a resource for early reading, right? So just like putting it out there constantly, getting into other people's spaces, podcasts, right? Group coaching situations, conferences, seminars, like anything you can get into so that you can talk about these workbooks, so that you can talk about these videos, so that people learn about them and know about them, so that your name becomes synonymous with early reading. That's building thought leadership. And that's what we were saying earlier, like it sounds like you already have this book, right? So getting it out there into the world so that people know about it is the next step in building thought leadership, because you already have the tool, which is incredible. Oh, you're welcome.
All right, so I think the last thing to cover really is Author Generator Society provides you kind of a container where you will be able to successfully write your book if you show up for yourself and ultimately your potential clients. But a step further than that, if people decide that they want to actually publish with YGTMedia, what does that look like in terms of their visibility? What are the differences between them joining Author Generator Society to self-publish versus joining Author Generator Society and publishing with you?
So I think it's funny because everyone who signs on for our publishing program, which we're now booking into 2024, which is incredible. Like we're now a year, which sounds so far away. It's not. I promise you, it's not far away. It goes by so freaking fast. It's crazy. But it really, I think the Author Generator Society, it really is a way to sort of break into us. Like if you've never heard of me before, you've never heard of blended publishing, you're just like, I just want to write my book and figure it out later. By module or month 3, everyone who's ever joined Author Generator has upgraded to publish with us, just because it's such a supportive community. And that's where the true marketing comes in. So most self-published authors, as I mentioned before, the statistics are gross, but also the visibility piece. That's why they don't sell books, is because nobody knows about them. Nobody knows who they are. So there's power in numbers. I'm not a publicist. We don't have an in-house publicist. We're not a marketing or PR agency. However, what we do have is the organic marketing piece, because having a community of like-minded people who are on the same mission, which is to support one another, like true, real, women supporting women, authors supporting authors, humans supporting humans, right? None of this like, rah, rah, like we're just saying that over here. Like it is some of the most magical friendships and interactions I've ever seen in my whole life. And I've been in a lot of different industries around a lot of different people. I worked in corporate for a decade. Like I know true support, and this is it. So having that community of people to like essentially your cheerleading squad when you launch your book, there's nothing else like it. Even hiring a publicist isn't the same, right? Because it's like, sure, they'll get you on media spots and like put you on Good Morning Texas or whatever, but is that beneficial to your messaging and your thought leadership and your book? Maybe not, right? So it's really about that like organic community piece that is such a powerful tool when it comes to like marketing a book. So I'm really proud of the community that we've built, because it feels like magic. It feels like home. And that's why we call it our family, right? It doesn't feel like a number on a publishing board somewhere, right? It's like, it's family. Everyone like communicates and, you know, talks about the hard stuff, talks about the real stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I would say. So most people join Author Generator to get a feel for it before investing in publishing, because it's a much larger investment, obviously, because like I mentioned earlier, you've got the editorial and the design, and, you know, we don't take books that are already done by someone else kind of thing. Like it has to go through our system, because that's one of our, like, that's our quality control and our check. But yeah, the Author Generator, most people so far anyway have upgraded to publish with us, and then everyone who does join to publish with us gets a free seat or an included seat in the Author Generator.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they decide to join Author Generator, that essentially comes off at the end of their publishing price.
It does.
And then I didn't know what to expect about where my book would land after it was actually published. Of course, there's Amazon, but just talk a little bit about when people publish with you, where the book will end up.
Yeah, so because we're actually, yes, we're a hybrid publisher, but we're also an accredited publisher. So we have membership with the International Publishers Association, the Canadian Publishers Association, and the Independent Publishers Association, which gives us access to places and opportunities that self-published authors don't have. And because we are an independent publisher, it also gives us access to things that traditional publishers don't have. So all of our books are distributed globally, Amazon every country, but we also distribute at 39,000 retailers across the planet. So your Chapters Indigo, Barnes and Noble, Winners, Target, of the small independent bookstores as well.
Awesome. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So for Author Generator Society, doors close tomorrow.
Tomorrow at midnight.
Tomorrow at midnight. So I will drop the link. And is that Mountain Time, Pacific Time?
Eastern Time. That's where I'm up in the boonies in Canada. That's where I am. Yeah.
Great. So I will drop the link to join Author Generator Society if that's of interest to you. Definitely follow Sabrina on her social media platforms. Sabrina, do you mind to just tell people where they can find you?
Of course, yeah. So we're YGTmedia.company, and that's Instagram, Facebook, and our website's YGTmedia.co, not .com. It wants to autocorrect all the time.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Sabrina, so much for your time. And I will get this posted in the group just as soon as possible on our YouTube channel and share on our socials. So I will see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, you will.
And I look forward to seeing some of you that are watching as well. So thank you.
Thanks for having me again.
Of course.